Hello everyone, and welcome to this hot off the presses edition of your award-winning Kingsport Chamber Zone. We are the show that's all about Kingsport and this great community that we call home. I am Laura Woods with Eastman. He's my good friend, co-host, and fellow news junkie, Bob Figgins with the Kingsport Chamber of Commerce, and we are coming today from a place that I'll just have to say is really near and dear to my heart. I'm sort of geeked out right now that we even get to be here because the newspaper has played such an important role in the way I grew up and how my mom emphasized the importance of making sure that you read it because you would know what was going on. And are we so fortunate to have this particular newspaper right here in our community?
Absolutely. The Kingsport Times-News is absolutely phenomenal. A huge partner and friend of your Kingsport Chamber, and they are celebrating 100 years this year. Yes.
Happy birthday.
100 years. Happy birthday to the Kingsport Times-News. They've been covering the stories and reporting the headlines that have been a part of our daily lives, of our residents and our businesses in our community. They've also helped in large part to define who we are as a community for the past century. We'll take you on a journey and look back at the history of this remarkable newspaper, and we'll also tell you what's to come from news here at the Kingsport Times-News in the future of this magnificent organization when we talk with its publisher, Keith Wilson, in just a moment.
And as we always start the show, we tell you that this is the one that is all about this great place that we get to call home, and it really is a wonderful place. But we also know that there are certain parts of our city that we wish maybe looked a little bit differently than they do. Well, the City of Kingsport Codes Enforcement Program is stepping up those efforts to help dilapidated and blighted properties turn into something that is more progressive and more valuable to the community. We will have the Codes Enforcement Officer, Melanie Adkins with the Kingsport Police Department on our show in just a little bit to talk about not only what the city's doing, but also how you get to help out with the effort.
And a little later on your CZ, we'll preview a one-time event that's coming to Kingsport. The Barter Theater and the Symphony of the Mountains Orchestra are teaming up again to present another classic Broadway musical hit. This time the performance will be of Chicago and it will take place this November at the Toy F. Reed Eastman Stage. A full cast of Barter actors will join the entire symphony to put on this amazing production. We'll tell you all about it, have a preview, and tell you how you can get your tickets. So we've got some hard news today. We've got, some legal news, government news, and of course we've got a wonderful feature in arts. We've got the Times-News ink in our blood today, don't we?
Yes. Today. And Kingsport, I hope you're paying attention because this is just one of a number of businesses that is celebrating its 100th anniversary right here in this city. That should tell you just what a great place we have here. So let's take advantage of it. We'll be right back after these bullets.
We are so pleased to be joined by our host for today's Kingsport Chamber Zone. Now, to do a proper introduction of this gentleman would take the entire interview segment, and we know you want to hear from him and not us, so we'll get to it rather quickly.
Right.
Keith Wilson is the publisher here of the Kingsport Times-News. He's also the president of the Northeast Tennessee Media Group.
He is also a past president of your Kingsport Chamber and a lifetime member recipient as well.
He's also one of our city's visionary leaders that was very instrumental in both the creation and development of the Kingsport Academic Village, and he was the one who came up with the idea for Educate and Grow.
In fact, if you want to see the impact that he has had on our region, just take a look at the Regional Center for Applied Technologies, or RCAT, located in downtown Kingsport. You may notice that his name adorns that building along with former Mayor Jeanette Blazers.
He's also a great supporter of this community and a huge friend of your Kingsport Chamber. And oh, by the way, he does an amazing job of running this newspaper on a daily basis. Keith Wilson.
In his spare time.
Yes.
I mean,
you're embarrassing me, guys.
And that was just a short introduction, you know.
It's all true. It's all so true.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us today, Keith.
Great to have you here. And thank you guys for the show you do and the work you do in the community. We've been a long-term, big-time supporter of the Chamber of Commerce, so we thank you very much for all your efforts.
Well, we thank you all. It's an excellent partnership, and the Times-News has been a huge part of this community for a century now, 100 years old. So
amazing.
How about that?
I know. How about that? So just to take a moment to talk about the history of the newspaper and talk about what it means for a newspaper to be 100.
Well, we started a year before the town did. So if you read the archives of the Times-News, you've got basically a daily history of this community as it grew, and we grew with the community. I suppose if you really think about any organization that lasts for 100 years, the key word would be adaptable, because it's not that change is new, change is constant. And what we were doing 100 years ago is not what we're doing today in that sense. But we've been very adaptable, and any organization is going to be adaptable if it survives 100 years. The current company purchased this newspaper in 1963 from C.P. Edwards, and they built this building in 1972. We've been operating out of this building since that time. It's been quite a journey, and we're looking forward to the next 100 years.
Well, and I think it's important to note, I mean, it's not that you've just survived for 100 years, but you have thrived for 100 years. I mean, this newspaper has just been a cornerstone here in this community and such an important part of it. And that has to be, as you said, being adaptable, the evolution of the way you all have covered the news, right? You've taken a different approach.
The technology has changed, and certainly lots have changed about how we do various kinds of things, the platforms we use and the technology that we use. But the principle that started remains the same. I mean, the principle of fact-based journalism, the truth, seeking this, those things don't change. I mean, we've stayed true, I think, to the core principles of journalism. That's our job every day. We attempt to do that to the best of our ability every day.
Well, and on top of that, you've remained an important part of our community. You've been very involved, you as the newspaper has been very involved in this community too, and that obviously means that it's really important to you as a company.
Well, it is. If you think about it, we can't move. I mean, a newspaper is the town, and the town is the newspaper. I can't take the Kingsport Times News if things get tough and move it to Bristol or Johnson City or someplace else. We either make it here or we don't make it at all. And so our relationship and our striving and our working to support the community, which we believe that we do in our own way by telling the truth and et cetera throughout there and what's going on, is a lot of self-preservation too. We have to see this community grow for our company to grow. And so if there's any company in Kingsport that's more rooted than us, I don't know who it would
That's
be.
right.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
And Keith, another huge reason for your thriving and your success is you have a phenomenal award-winning news team here. So talk about your staff for a moment and the impact they make.
We have phenomenal staff. I'm the spokesperson for the company, but they are the company. I mean, the work that gets done isn't done by Keith Wilson or two or three others. I mean, we have had all kinds of awards, et cetera. We don't stand up on the soapbox and, you know, we kind of hide our candle under a bushel to some extent. But in truth, they turn out a tough product. It's a daily miracle, as we call it, to some extent, because it's 7 days a week, 365, actually 364. We don't publish on Christmas now. But it's just do the job, show up, make the deadline, you know, show up every day and do the work, and the staff is the one. And I think people underestimate how the process works, and that you start over with a blank sheet every single day. And within a period of 16 hours, that blank sheet is a printed paper on somebody's doorstep, hopefully. And the distribution network that goes behind that with 162 carriers and keeping everybody happy is a big job, but it's one we love.
Right. Well, another important part of the newspaper, of course, is the advertising as well. And so if you had to tell somebody why should they advertise with the Kingsport Times News, what would you tell them?
Well, let me put it this way. The Kingsport Times News, the newspaper itself, is the core piece of what we do. But we don't recommend anybody just buy one thing anymore. We actually have over 20 different products and services in a portfolio of things that our staff sells. So we're more than the newspaper. The newspaper is the core piece because there's not a more widely distributed single-day distribution among the marketplace than the newspaper to this day. But we also have websites. We have native advertising. We have direct mail. We have Facebook campaigns that we also manage for people. We have Google AdWords. So we partnered with national companies, and as I said, we have over 20 different kinds of advertising and marketing opportunities that we're prepared to assist a local company do it. We're really a local marketing company who also owns and operates a newspaper.
Right.
And that's the change, some of the change that we've seen over the year. We have very much expanded beyond the newspaper industry.
So, Keith, if people want more information about the Times News, let's say they want to check out the history of the newspaper, or imagine there's somebody out there who doesn't have a subscription. I can't imagine not having a subscription to the Times News.
No.
Maybe. Where are
If
they
you
going
want a subscription, you call me.
Okay.
Call the office,
Yeah.
246-8121, or go to the website.
Okay.
You can enroll at the website. So, I mean, we're out there every day. Our website has about 384,000 unique visitors every month.
Wow.
And we serve about over 5 million page views every month. So that side of the business has expanded hugely over the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years. And we see that as a continuing expansion on the electronic side.
It's amazing. So timesnews.net, right?
Timesnews.net.
Easy enough. Keith Wilson with the Kingsport Times News. Is this the first time we've had you on the show for the Kingsport Times News? I think it is.
For the Times News, I think, yes.
I've been on the show for other things,
Yeah.
But for the
this is
Times
the
News,
first time that I've ever
For his real job,
we
you know.
we need to change that. Thank you
Sure.
so much. And we're
Thank you
just
for being here.
so glad to have the
Yeah.
newspaper as part of our community.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
We
Keith,
hope
for
to
all you
continue.
do.
Yeah.
Yes. And when we come back on your CZ, we'll tell you how the City of Kingsport is stepping up its codes enforcement program. And welcome back to your Kingsport Chamber Zone, on location from the newsroom here at the Kingsport Times News.
Yeah, Kingsport is a beautiful and charming city, but just like any place, of course, you know, you have a couple of areas within the city where you're like, oh, I wish we could do something about that, or maybe it doesn't quite reflect what we would like our city to show those people who don't live here. And the City of Kingsport has a renewed effort to make sure that we clean up those areas and we truly let Kingsport shine like the gem that we know that it is. Here to tell us more about it is Officer Melanie Adkins with the Kingsport Police Department. I feel a little nervous.
I know it.
that- because-
Between Keith having the publisher on and now a
No,
police
is that
officer,
the
we really
police-
got to
is
step
that
it
the
up.
police on the show? I kind of wonder what we're getting into on the Kingsport Chamber Zone. It's Officer Adkins' first appearance, of course, on the Kingsport Chamber Zone, and she is the officer who deals with the code enforcement issues with the police department. So, Officer Adkins, thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, tell us a little bit about what codes enforcement means in Kingsport.
Well, let me say first that about a year ago, the Codes Enforcement Program was transferred out of the police department into developmental services. So I am now acting as a civilian codes enforcement
Okay.
officer. And the reason for that was to try to consolidate our efforts and work with the planning department, zoning, and the building department. And so we are all under one roof now where we can collaborate and make our efforts more consolidated with, of course, more effectiveness. So prior to about a year ago, my role was basically reactive in the sense of I would respond to complaints and try to get those properties in compliance with the codes or the ordinances. Now, it is still very similar. The difference is, as codes enforcement coordinator, which is my role now, I handle property maintenance codes, and then in addition, I filled out the other complaints to the appropriate, such as Public Works or the building department or zoning.
Okay.
So that is how we've
It's a team
changed
effort.
things.
Team
It's a team
effort
effort now, more so than what it was.
That's
Well,
great.
it truly is a team effort. It's a renewed effort. And when we talk about these dilapidated, blighted eyesores of properties, what are we talking about? What are the problems you're trying to fix through your codes enforcement program?
I think one of the big problems that we have are vacant properties, which maybe result from deceased owners, foreclosed properties, and then they get neglected and they begin to fall down. So rather than emphasize so much on cosmetic issues, it's more of a structural problem where we've got roofs falling, we've got foundations caving in. So we are also trying to consolidate our efforts in communities. For example, we started working very hard in the Highland area months ago, and we have demolished several properties in that area now. So we are attacking communities as a whole, as opposed to just a house here and a house there.
So, and I'm sorry, Bob. And so when you talk about attacking those properties and demolishing those properties, like you were talking about in the Highlands area, what kind of impact do you expect that to have on the Highlands area?
It's having a great impact because we are, number one, getting rid of the dilapidated properties, and then we're also looking at some programs where some of these maybe government agencies are looking at coming in and purchasing some of these properties to develop them with other houses or apartments. So this is something that we're looking at long term. So we're going to have a twofold process going on.
And I know, and Officer Atkins, do you also look at like junk in yards and litter and trash? I mean, you also have codes enforcement for that too, correct?
Yes, we do, and that is primarily what I do. I work on property maintenance, so I deal with properties where grass is not being mowed. And as I said, most of those problems are with vacant properties, or we do have a lot of junked up yards. Abandoned vehicles, people just storing a lot of junk and trash on their properties. So I do have to deal with a lot of those.
And what do you do with those properties?
As of right now, we cite those people into city court if they refuse to comply with the ordinance and bring the properties up to code and take care of whatever problems we have asked them to take care of. We are looking at some other options for the near future, such as an environmental court, which would have more teeth in it for enforcement. We're also looking at possibly some land grants, which would enable us to bypass, say in a situation where we have many heirs to a property and we can't notify all those heirs, then this enables us to attach liens and take these properties and bypass that. So we're going to be able to actually attach liens and take more properties in the future.
And you talked about certainly being concerned about structural integrity and safety and things of that nature. And then you also touched, it's also got an economic value to it as well, because obviously the more that we're able to make the community look better, then the more that we're going to expect people being willing to invest in the community.
Yes, it's contagious, for one thing. I have seen a lot of nearby properties be upgraded by owners just because one house was torn down, and it gives them some incentive, and they'll get out and they'll start working. Another thing too is some of these vacant properties where, like I said, the owners are deceased, they have back taxes, and so there's nothing to gain from these properties anymore. So to revitalize the properties and to rebuild or to be able to sell them, then once again there is an economic progress being made there too.
Right. So if people want to report any kind of issue that they're having, how do they do that?
The hotline, 224-CODE, 224-2633. And we have people that man those phones, and then the calls get fielded out to the appropriate department depending on what the complaint is.
And it's important because citizens and residents can help with this. If they see something, they really need to call that hotline, right?
That's right, and we do rely on citizen input. As of right now, we don't have the manpower to go out and be proactive as far as patrolling every neighborhood and finding these complaints. So we do rely on the citizens to call us and make us aware of what's going on out there.
That's great.
And that codes enforcement hotline number one more time is
224-2633 or 224-CODE.
Okay, 224-CODE. Well, Officer Melanie Atkins with the City of Kingsport, the Codes Enforcement Officer, thanks for joining us today, and thanks for what you're doing to beautify and enhance our city.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to have a preview of a collaboration between Symphony of the Mountains and Barter Theater right after this. And welcome back to this edition of your Kingsport Chamber Zone at the Kingsport Times News.
One news item that the Kingsport Times-News has heavily featured over the years has been our amazing art scene. Included in that, of course, are the incredible Barter Theater and the incredible Symphony of the Mountains Orchestra. During the last few years, these two powerhouse arts organizations have teamed up to perform Cabaret and Les Miserables. And for all of you symphony and theater lovers out there, which includes us, fortunately, they are coming together again to present the Broadway hit musical Chicago. The performance will take place this November at the Eastman Toy F. Reed Center. Here now with all the details are Melissa Roberts and Catherine Foreman. A frequent CZ guest,
Yes.
Melissa is the general manager of the Symphony of the Mountains Orchestra. And making her first CZ appearance, Catherine Foreman is the Director of Advancement for Barter Theater. It's good to see both of you.
Yes.
for having us.
Yeah, a lot of buzz and talk and excitement in the community over this, and we're still months away. But Catherine, tell us a little bit about how the idea to present Chicago with the Barter and Symphony together came about.
Well, Chicago's a pretty easy pick, I think. You know, it was the longest running American musical on Broadway, written by John Kander and Fred Ebb, so some of the greatest music ever. They also wrote Cabaret. People may not know that. So you've got that going for you. You've got an incredible script. You've got a show that demands great acting and also gives you the opportunity for incredible dance.
Yes.
And so that's our cup of tea.
Sure.
And when you have a great score to work with, then it really deserves an orchestra experience for the audience, and we're happy to be able to provide that. It works with the band that we have also. I mean, it's a really incredible range of performance scale on this score, but the orchestra is going to add an extra, something really more than a little extra. It's a transformative experience, I think, for the audience.
Now, and I'm sure that you've already done all the casting for it. I know that. Did you get a call for the singing? I didn't get a call for the dancing.
I got a call to be the usher in the balcony, but you know, yes.
The call didn't go through.
She says with such a delightful smile on her face. So, Melissa, this is going to be a little bit different production then. It's going to be set up a little bit differently too. So can you walk our audience through what they can expect to see for the production?
Well, it's really kind of almost two separate productions, because when you go to Barter and you see it in the theater there, you're going to have a smaller band. You know, it's going to be a smaller group of musicians, but you're going to have the full backgrounds and that type of thing. So when you come to Kingsport and you see it, what you're going to have is the full cast. And you're going to have some of the props, all of the costuming, but you're going to have a full orchestra on top of it. And like Catherine said, this one lends itself to a full orchestra. It is one of those pieces that is just incredibly powerful. It's an amazing story.
So grand.
Yeah, it is. And it's just one of those things that having the full orchestra behind a professional cast is going to make this an incredible experience. But it is kind of like two separate productions, so we're encouraging everybody to go to Barter to see it and then come to Kingsport to see it, because it is two
They are
different
pretty
things.
different.
Really?
Yeah,
And it's worth seeing twice.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Our director is Tricia Matthews, and I was talking to her yesterday, and they're itching to get a full-blown rehearsal and get this thing on its feet. They just can't wait to get to it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things is, you know, people think, oh, well, Barter and Symphony are going to be rehearsing this for weeks ahead of time. We get one dress rehearsal and we go live. So that's what happens when you bring two professional organizations together is you get it, you hit it, and you are on stage.
That's wonderful.
Well, it's a testament to the caliber and the quality of those
is.
professional organizations.
It really is.
And Melissa, people love the Barter, they love the Symphony of the Mountains, and they go crazy when they're on stage together. This is the third time they're doing that. It truly is a one-time only special performance. It really is a can't miss, right?
It is.
Yeah.
You know, and in the past we've done two shows, and this year, because of scheduling, we have one show.
Yeah.
So you have one opportunity to see this on November 13th. We're doing a matinee at 3 p.m. So I encourage everybody, you know, don't miss this. Don't forget about it. Don't think, oh, I'll go to the next one. There isn't the next one.
Are the tickets already on sale?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Through the Barter box office.
Okay.
And I would say people who have never been to the symphony, never been to the theater, you think this is not for you, Chicago would be the place to try it. It's a hilarious story about two female criminals who hire the same defense attorney, and everybody ends up being famous. And that's something that's really, it's right out of the headlines, just as it was in 1975 when Chicago was produced, and the 1920s where this thing was set. So you'll see yourself, and I think other people you know in it. You don't have to dress up. You can just wear a decent shirt, pants, whatever you have. Wear shoes. It'll be November. And you'll see people there, you know, wearing ties or cocktail dresses. But it's okay to come with whatever you have. I would, you know, get yourself over to the Toy Reed and see this.
That's great.
Theater and symphonies for everyone.
Yes.
It truly is. Yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned that Barter's also doing Chicago this fall, but you also have a number of other shows on your playbill. So what can we enjoy at Barter this fall and into the holiday season?
Yeah, our other show there in the theater is Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is our spooky show based
Are
on
you
the
in
book
that
and the
one?
novel.
I am, yes. That one they cast me for, yes.
And then across the street at Barter Stage 2, we have Perfect Murder. We have big murder fans among our audience.
Yeah.
And then Winter Wheat, which is brand new. It was written by our playwright in residence, Catherine Bush. It is based on the true story of a family from Nyota, Tennessee, that was instrumental in passing the ratification of the women's right to vote, the 19th Amendment. They provided, the son provided the last vote that let Tennessee ratify it. It was the 36th state. That was the threshold. And our country changed because of that. So it's quite a story. It's got local interest, and I didn't know anything about it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds like a great playbill there. And Melissa, of course, Symphony of the Mountains, you guys have a lot coming up for your season, right?
We do. We have a big season. We've got the Kruger brothers that are coming back. We're touring locally with them, and then we're going on tour with them to North Carolina and to Switzerland. And then
Now, how did you pick Switzerland? I mean, you know what? Where'd that come from? You know,
So we're doing that, and then we've got our Christmas concerts. We've got Verdi's Requiem, which is this huge choral piece, and then of course we're finding the end of our season with Carl Tanner, which people around here adore him.
That's wonderful.
Melissa, if people want tickets to the Symphony of the Mountains, any of your shows, or want to get season passes, just want more information, where can they find that?
They can get it on our website at symphonyofthemountains.org. They can give us a call at 423-392-8423, or come visit us Monday through Friday from 10 to 4.
And Catherine, if people want the latest on what's happening at Barter, they want to get tickets for Chicago, where do they do that?
BarterTheater.com or the box office at 276-628-3991. If you go to the Symphony of the Mountains website, there's a link to the Barter website, so you can get your Chicago tickets there.
Easy enough.
We're all hooked up
That's
there.
great.
Yeah.
Ladies, thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, what an amazing collaboration that you have going on, but on top of that, just the talent that you all have individually as well. We're so blessed to have that level here in a community like we do. So thank you so much for everything that you do to support the
Glad to be
arts.
here. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. And there's more of your CZ from the Kingsport Times News right after this. They have literally stopped the presses for us here for your Kingsport Chamber Zone here at the Kingsport Times News.
See?
She just said we're here where the miracle happens, the daily newspaper every day here at the Kingsport Times News. We're here in the press room, just a phenomenal piece of equipment and just a phenomenal newspaper.
Yep.
100 years old and 100 more great years still to come. Thanks to Keith Wilson and his incredible team here at the Kingsport Times News for hosting us today. For more information on the Kingsport Times News, go to timesnews.net.
And of course, we have a fabulous team at Spectrum Reach, so a big hug.
She's hugging our producer and director, Jason, right now. He does not allow me to hug him.
To them for producing our show and putting up with us. To find out what is happening in Kingsport, we want you to watch us here on the Kingsport Chamber Zone. We also want you to feel free to visit the Chamber at 400 Clinchfield. You can give them a call at 392-8800. They are so social, so you can like them on Facebook, you can follow them on Twitter, and check out the website, kingsportchamber.org.
Don't forget the Codes Enforcement Hotline for the City of Kingsport, 224-CODE. That's 224-CODE, C-O-D-E. And to get your Chicago tickets for the Barter Theater and Symphony of the Mountains, simply go to bartertheater.com. And until our next visit together on your Kingsport Chamber Zone, we are Bob and Laura reminding you to read your newspaper and be loyal.
And buy local. Have a great week.